You know why I think a lot of us go through life lacking purpose, meaning, inner peace, and true fulfillment, really? It's because we are disconnected from ourselves, disconnected from the truth of who we are. We go through life very identified with this false self, this ego, this self-concept, which is just a series of beliefs and ideas that have been passed on to us about ourselves, that we've kind of learned from a young age, and then we continue to live in alignment with those beliefs, and it reinforces them as being true, because whatever you believe to be true on a conscious or subconscious level, it filters and distorts reality, and it shows that back to you. You look for evidence of that. And not only that, but you act in ways that, again, reinforce that to be true, to show you that it's true about yourself. And so we go through life living from this ego, identified with this ego and this self-concept and this identity. And along with being identified with this, human body and this character that we're playing, we become identified with the desires, the emotions, the compulsions, the attachments. And that is largely what causes our lack of fulfillment or suffering in life, because we go through life asleep, not awakened and in touch with the truth of who we are, the truth of the nature of our reality, this life that we're experiencing. And if we could learn to live from that truth, to be guided from that truth, we would experience a lot less suffering in life. We would create a lot less suffering for ourselves. Marcus Aurelius had a really good quote, and it's that we suffer more in imagination than we do in reality. And I like that quote because it speaks to the nature of our own mind and how it's the way that we think about things. It's our imagination about the past or the future. It's the way that we interpret or perceive that which happens outside of us that creates a lot of our suffering. And that is, again, the ego, the self-concept. The self-concept, this identity, we've come to have certain preferences about this is the way things should be, this is the way things should not be, I want them to be this way, I don't want them to be that way. And it causes us to go through life attaching to certain things and resisting other things. And as Buddha said, attachment is the source of suffering. And if you can't have attachment to one thing without resistance to something else. Because as long as you are going through life attached to one thing, you're probably going to be resisting anything that could threaten you achieving that attachment. And so we go through life and it's this roller coaster ride of ups and downs and emotions and inner turmoil and intense joy and all these different things. And that's fine because it's the human experience. But if you want to go through life with less peaks and valleys, if you will, with a more stable sense of contentment or more inner mastery, so that these things don't control your inner state, it's coming back to the truth of who you are, which is that spiritual being that is experiencing what it's like to be human. It's having this human experience. And we go through life very disconnected from that spiritual essence because we are so identified with the ego, with all of the desires of this ego and, again, all those attachments. And when we are living from the ego, it pulls us away from the spirit, the soul, the awareness that is behind the ego. It's like it covers it up. And it's very difficult to connect with when we're so identified with it. So the key, if you want to start coming back to awareness or the spiritual essence that you are, it's to slow down and to be mindful of yourself. We basically have two pathways, and I'll simplify it in that way. There's more nuance to it, but think of it two pathways. You can be conscious or you can be compulsive. To be conscious is to be aware, is to be mindful, is to be present, is to have stillness as the foundation for your life experience. To be compulsive is to be reactive, to be identified with the thoughts, the emotions, the desires, the urges, all of the things that goes on within this character. When we live a compulsive life, it's pulling us away from mindfulness, from awareness, from presence, from stillness. We're constantly distracting or stimulating our minds. And that overstimulation clutters the mind. And that cluttered mind prevents us from getting in touch with awareness itself. Awareness precedes all experience. I've used this analogy before. It's like seeing me on your screen right now. And then you can exit out of this video and go to a different video or do something else. What happens on your screen will always change. But the screen is there no matter what. It's unchanging. The actual screen that everything appears on. It's like that is awareness. That is the spiritual essence of what we are. It's the background for all experience. For every thought, for every emotion, for every sense perception, everything you can see, hear, feel, every urge that you have. It's happening on the screen of awareness. And quite often we're identified with what's on the screen that we can't even begin to touch base with that awareness or perceive that awareness. So in order to get in touch with awareness, we just have to slow down. We have to breathe. We have to be able to regulate ourselves. A dysregulated nervous system is very difficult to perceive and live from awareness, to be conscious in life. Dysregulation usually is coming from living unconsciously in life, living reactively, compulsively, impulsively, just chasing one desire or running away from fear or whatever that looks like. It's this polarization. I'm running away from fear, I'm chasing desire, and that's how we live our lives, just unconsciously identified with the character, the ego, this identity as I've talked about. And it's not about necessarily killing the ego per se. Like I have to destroy this ego by doing all these rituals and things like that, you know? It's just about simply observing it. Observing it without identifying to it. It's obviously going from not being in touch with awareness at all to dissolving your ego in awareness is like going from 0 to 100 like that. I mean, you build up to that. If you can start with simply observing a thought that's going on within your mind and create space between awareness and a thought, that's the first step. That's like lighting the stick of dynamite. And now you just have to continue to live from that awareness by slowing down, by being in stillness. Rumi had a great quote, and he said, "The quieter you get, the more you can hear." And I think that's a great quote. It does point to that truth that in stillness, there's something in the stillness call it God, if you will, wisdom. It can't really be put into words. It can't be conceptualized by the mind. And that's the thing, we can't think our way to awareness or awakening. We have to live in practice with it. And I have found that the path to awakening, enlightenment, if you want to call it that, these are just concepts again, is by being still, by slowing down, and living from consciousness, not compulsively from ego. It's a practice every single day. It's not your 30-minute meditation or sound bath or, whatever practice, or, reading a spiritual book or doing a course or anything like that. It's moment to moment regulation, slowing down, breathing, and being present. But again, when we're so identified with the ego, when we're going through life asleep, this seems like a waste of time. It seems like a waste of time, and it seems useless. Because we are so disconnected from truth, it's like there's a whole other world out there that we can't perceive because we haven't developed that sense that is inherently us. I don't even want to say within us, it's inherently what we are. But when we are disconnected from ourselves, we're disconnected from that intuitive wisdom, that spiritual wisdom within, that it can only be connected with through stillness, through slowing down, through mindfulness. And this is why I think it's so important to pause, to slow down from day to day, to not have something to do all the time. We always feel like when we're so identified with the ego or this play of life, quite often we always feel like there's something we need to be doing. Whether it's striving for some goal or to become somebody or enhance our life in some way or our self-worth, or if it's distracting ourselves to avoid being bored or uncomfortable. But if we can just practice abstaining from either one of those things and return to presence, being intentional with returning and being mindful with ourselves and observing this. Quite often we're very aware of what's going on out there. We're more aware of what's going on the other side of the world than we are what's going on within ourselves, our emotions, our thoughts, who we actually are beyond the ego. And which is a real shame, because I would say we're the only constant in life. To not have mastery or an understanding of what this is, we're missing out on living a truly full life. It's like if I gave you a video game controller and didn't tell you how to use it and told you, okay, play the game. You probably wouldn't do very well in the game because you have no idea how to use that controller, how to master the game. And it's not about mastering life, let's say. It's just about mastering yourself. And in that, you elevate your experience of life naturally. You are more fulfilled, more enriched, more at peace, without needing to strive and chase and do all these things in the play. It's like what Jesus said, be in the world but not of it. It's not about not being in the world anymore. We're here. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. It's about integrating that truth into your life, into life itself. Because when you get deep into this truth, you realize it's not your life, it's just life. And you are an expression of that life, intelligence, consciousness. Touching base with that spiritual essence, what comes from you in life is an expression of that intelligence, a unique expression through you. It's kind of like, you know how if you have different settings on your sprayer, on your, say, your shower head, you can turn the nozzle and then it'll be like a jet, or it'll be like a regular shower stream, or whatever it is. It's like each one of us in life has like that setting. And when we can touch base with that authentic truth within what we do in life, it's like that expression of consciousness coming through us is a unique expression that can only be emitted from you in your life, which is different from me in my life. Because the truth is, yeah, we have this concept, we have this ego, and that's not a bad thing. It's there to aid us in our awakening, because the ego is what creates our suffering. You can't have awakening and elevation and transcendence without suffering. It's like what Carl Jung said, the tree that would grow to heaven must send its roots to hell. And it speaks to that truth that, you know, in order to grow into the highest expression of yourself or elevate your consciousness, you have to experience the dark side, the suffering, the hardship. And the ego usually creates that for us through the attachment and the resistance and the, you know, all those things that I talked about. But if you're tired of having that control you, come back to awareness within yourself. That is you. Even right now, you can be aware of my voice without attaching to the thoughts of what you have about this video. Or when you look outside and you see a tree or a car, you can be aware of what you think about that without identifying with it. It's the over-identification with our thoughts, emotions, and the ego that creates our unconsciousness in life. And it's our unconsciousness in life that creates our suffering, and then we wonder why we're so unfulfilled. Always needing to chase more to try and fill some sort of void within us. But that void can't be filled with things of this physical world. Sure, they might give you a blip in dopamine or, you know, serotonin, or help you feel a little bit better for the time being, but it's fleeting. True lasting peace comes from awakening to your true self. There's a really good line that I read recently in the Bhagavad Gita, and Krishna said, the cessation of your suffering comes from you awakening to your true self. Something along those lines. I forget the exact line, but it stood out to me because, yeah, it's so basic, but it's so true. Our suffering comes from not knowing our true self. And if we knew our true self, it doesn't mean that we wouldn't experience the human emotions from time to time, the ups and downs, because that is the human experience. But it means that we wouldn't identify with them so much, and in identifying with them, we wouldn't perpetuate it. We wouldn't create more of that. It wouldn't be this downward spiral. Life wouldn't be this massive roller coaster of ups and downs. We could still be in the world, but not of it. We could still experience life, but not be so identified with it. And the way into this truth is by coming into stillness, into presence, by just breathing. And it is a practice. It's you strengthening your spiritual muscle, which can only be done through practice. Like any other workout, like any other muscle that you strengthen. You can only strengthen a muscle when you use it. And you use the spiritual muscle by practicing being conscious in life, by slowing down, by regulating your nervous system, by not reacting to patterns, but rather creating space between your awareness and the emotion that is compelling you to react. When we continually live from the flesh, it pulls us away from the spirit, from the soul. The desires of the flesh aren't inherently bad. They're not. Within the context of touching base with your spiritual essence, if we are so caught up in continually chasing desires of the flesh, of the ego, it's very difficult to live from the truth of who you are and to be guided by that. And that is the source of inner peace, of inner wisdom, of purpose, of meaning in life. And I've experienced this firsthand. When I have lived compulsively, reactively from my urges and emotions, I feel very disconnected from myself, from awareness. It perpetuates itself. The cycle of compulsive living perpetuates itself. It's difficult to break free of, but you can by going into the discomfort of not reacting, of not being compulsive. I've learned that it's better to do nothing than to live compulsively, than to overstimulate, than to always be distracting, than to live for instant gratification, cheap dopamine, or to live from the fear of constantly needing to do something, and the fear of if I'm not continually striving, then I'm not going to be enough. These are two things that pull you away from yourself in life. So if you want to come back to the truth of who you are and get off the roller coaster of ups and downs and suffering and inner turmoil that come from attaching and resisting and identifying with the ego, you don't have to live from that anymore. You can simply observe it. Simple doesn't mean easy. It is a practice, and I've learned that it's probably the most worthwhile practice because you touch base with truth in life, the truth of life that can't be put into words. You will only experience this through experience, through understanding, through going within, deep within, sitting with the discomfort of wanting to be compulsive and letting it burn off, whether that's lust, whether that is, other emotions. It'll come up within you. But when you can sit with it, you come back to truth. You come back to stillness. And stillness is awareness. Awareness is God, is that which is beyond the ego, but can't be conceptualized by this mind. It can only be experienced. So, hope this video helps you come back to yourself, come back to the truth of who you are, so you don't have to live on the roller coaster of suffering anymore. So I hope this helps, and I'll see you in the next video.